Hello everyone, this is Karen Anderson, Director of Supporting Success for Children with Hearing Loss, and we are thrilled to have you join us for the final Interact AS webinar of the 2015-2016 school year. Wow, it's already spring. Some school districts have 2 months, some have 3 months left of the school year, but we all feel the pressure that the end is in sight and we need to have some plans in place for next year. So there are increasing numbers of students with hearing loss in the mainstream classroom, which is often a wonderful thing, but because hearing devices really do not restore normal hearing, these students will continue to struggle with not being able to completely hear all that the teacher says, even when they're wearing great hearing aid technology and FM technology or even cochlear implants. Hearing technology just doesn't restore normal hearing. They're always going to be missing some information, and they're always going to have to put forth greater effort in order to get the information that they do understand. At the end of 2014, the U.S. Departments of Justice and U.S. Department of Education clarified in a policy statement that under the Americans with Disabilities Act, that schools must ensure that the communication of students with hearing loss is as effective as it is for their hearing peers. If not, then auxiliary supports such as technology and services must be made available. So as we're doing our planning for students for whether it's at the end of this year and they're not doing well, or maybe you're planning for some transition to higher education and it's time to start looking at increasing that student's independence and having them experiment with captioning. Whatever the reason, this is a wonderful time to get information about automated captioning and see how well it might fit your student and your situations. So I'm pleased, so pleased as Director of Supporting Success that we are partnering with Auditory Sciences, and that Robert Palmquist, developer of the Interact AS speech-to-text translation software system, is here with me on this webinar. Rob is going to run us through a demonstration so you can see firsthand how it works, because that really is how you understand the benefit of this wonderful accommodation. And just like any other accommodation, it's not going to be perfect for every student. Some students just do quite well with their hearing and they just miss that occasional word, maybe 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 30 words, and they can use this as a glance and get kind of a resource. Maybe they have FM technology and they do pretty well with that, but they're still missing some information. And so this will allow them to have some captioning that they can refer to visually and then pop right back up to watch that teacher or their classmates talking. And then we have other students who really don't get enough auditorily or maybe have no auditory input and really need to be able to see that verbal instruction in captioning format. So whether Interact AS is a supplemental accommodation to provide communication that is as effective as class peers, or whether it's a primary accommodation, it's certainly one to consider for your student on a case-by-case basis. So again, Rob Palmquist is going to take us through some slides and through a demo, and we're going to try and answer all of your questions here on this webinar. Thanks again for being here, and hey, Rob, take it away.
Well, thanks, Karen. Yeah, thanks for that nice introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm sure you're all busy trying to wrap up the school year, and so we certainly do appreciate you taking the time to learn a bit more about Interact AS and perhaps get a little bit of a head start on next year, being able to set up a system like this for a student for the coming year. Certainly there's strong reasons to do that. So again, thank you for spending the time. I will show you a few PowerPoint slides, but I promise not to do too many of those. We tend to like doing live demos more than PowerPoint slides. I just think they're more interesting. It's more exciting for us, that's for sure, giving a live demo in front of all these folks here today. Always makes a little bit more of a stressful situation, but that's what you do in the classroom. You're obviously live all the time, so we should be demonstrating our software live as well. Here's a bit of what we'll be covering today. I'll go over some background on Interact AS. I promise it'll be pretty quick. I just like telling a little bit about where it came from, and then we'll spend most of the time giving live demonstrations and answering your questions. We will step through recommended approaches for use in the classroom, and that pre-poll, some of you participated in that. I see that not everyone here is focused just on the classroom. So certainly if you have questions for situations beyond that, by all means do ask them. We certainly appreciate you asking questions. And we'll make sure that they all get answered. Even at the end of the webinar, when we run out of time, I'll stick around online and make sure that all your questions do get answered, and we'll do some follow-up with you as well. And finally, at the end, we'll show you how you can sign up for a 30-day trial of Interact AS to make sure it's a good accommodation for your student. We definitely want to focus on that concept of having it be a really good fit for the student. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of a background on Interact AS and where it came from. I do like giving mention to the U.S. Marine Corps because they funded the vast majority of this particular product. SpeechGear, our parent company, has a long history of working with the military. We started out with the language translation, being able to converse in Arabic, for example, in the field, in the theater, without having to require on a local translator. Our software did that for them. Lots of intelligence applications, being able to find where in various radio intercepts something of interest is being spoken about. But in particular, what we're focused on here is our efforts working with the Marine Corps and the Office of Naval Research on the Wounded Warrior program. The percentage of Marines coming back from in-theater operations with hearing loss is absolutely staggering. And why is that? Certainly the Marines are provided with hearing protection, but the reality of the situation is if they're wearing that hearing protection, they lose what they call situational awareness. They can't hear those footsteps approaching from behind them. And so hearing protection commonly is not worn, and then there's a subsequent, say, 15-second blast from a machine gun that's right next to their ear, and as a result of that 15 seconds, they now have permanent hearing loss for the rest of their lives. And so the Marine Corps, and particularly Dr. Joel Davis with the Office of Naval Research, came to us and said, hey, can you build on these various other programs that you've done for us and create a captioning system that can be used by our Marines, by our warfighters when they come back home. And so we were certainly glad to be part of that effort. And again, I just wanted to mention that that's really the basis of where Interact AS, the funding for Interact AS came from. It has been around for a while, about 4 or 5 years now since we first released our beta products. And certainly a lot of groups have taken the time to review our products. We appreciate them doing that. This is a bit of an eye chart, but certainly we do kind of like the one down here at the 5 o'clock position. We admit we're kind of tech geeks around here, and so we kind of liked when CNET reviewed us and called us the Star Trek Universal Translator, and we're excited about the Star Trek movie that's coming out later this year, so all sorts of things. But definitely we are appreciative of the Marine Corps and the various groups that have taken time to evaluate what we're doing here at SpeechGear and our subsidiary, Auditory Sciences. So let's get on to the Interact AS product itself. Certainly we can caption multiple forms of speech, and so you see kind of a listing there, and again we're going to focus predominantly on the classroom type setting, so lectures and seminars. In addition to being able to caption, and I'll just mention this real quickly, also built into Interact AS is a very nice set of speech generation tools. And so if you have a student who is deaf, it's fairly common for articulation issues to also be present. And so we provide both directions of that conversation, the ability to caption what somebody is saying and also to generate speech. Or perhaps you have a student who's just not comfortable speaking, autism or Asperger's syndrome, various situations such as that. Certainly within Interact AS, there's some very nice speech generation tools, and I'm not going to focus on demonstrating those today, but certainly contact us. And if you'd like to learn more, we'll be happy to step you through some of those features and how they are very unique from other speech generation systems that perhaps you've used. Also within Interact AS, we do have the ability to remove language barriers. As I mentioned, that's where we got started in working with the Marines, was precisely removing those language barriers for warfighters in theater operations. So within the module, within Interact AS, you can add a module for language translation. And now if you have a parent that would prefer to speak Russian or Vietnamese or Spanish or something like this, or at an IEP meeting, whatever it might be, we have tools that remove that language barrier that you can use to better engage the parent in the student's education. And so certainly that's all part of the various options that are included within this software. Lots of new features, and here's a rather long list of what we've recently done with Interact AS. I'll let you read over that because, again, I want to spend the time more on demos than just going over PowerPoint slides. But certainly there's a lot there that if you haven't tried Interact AS lately, please do give it a try. A brand new speech engine was a huge upgrade that we made with our latest release of the software. But again, I mentioned several times here that I do want to get into demos. PowerPoint slides tend to be a little bit boring, we think. But let's talk first about the interface and what you're going to see. So at the very top, what you have is the navigation bar. And you have 5 different pages that are included within Interact AS: the user, translate, configure, visualize, and the help page. And we'll be mostly focusing on the user and translate page during these demonstrations, but we'll step through those quite a bit for you. The most recently spoken phrase that you say as a teacher is going to be displayed in this top box. It's a quick glance and get. We deliberately put that at the very top box to make it very easy to find. And again, it's the most recently displayed phrase. So very similar, for example, if you see captioning on a television program, where you're seeing the captioning, it appears as they're talking, and then it disappears. That's what's happening here at the very top box. In the middle box, what you have is the control box. And so depending on your configuration, how you want to set it up, you can set it up so that you, as the teacher, have complete control as to when captioning is occurring, who can view that captioning, who can take home a written transcript or the synchronized voice recording of what you were saying. Again, we give you the complete control, so whatever you're comfortable with, you can use that in setting up the system to best support your students. At the bottom, we have a running transcript of everything that's been said, and we'll demonstrate how you can save that transcript. And as part of that transcript, we also have a synchronized voice recording. So later in the evening, if the student wants to, they can highlight a portion of that transcript and hear a recording of what you were saying at that moment. And again, totally controlled by you. If you want to send home a transcript, by all means, we give you the ability. If you want to control access to those transcripts, you can do that as well. So again, at the very top box, there's that quick glance and get feature. That's predominantly where the student is going to be focused. That is what they're going to be glancing at whenever they miss a statement that the teacher says. And because the captioning happens so fast, we don't have a person typing here, it's all software-based, it's very easy for the student to shift from looking at the teacher's face to looking at that top box to re-engaging with the teacher. And so let's jump into live demos here and get going on that. So I'm going to shrink this down. I'm going to pull up my Interact AS software. Here we go. And let's make this larger so you can see it. And I'll turn on my microphone. So now everything that I'm saying is being captioned. I'm doing this in real time. I don't have some sort of set script or something like that. Again, in the classroom, you'd be talking just like this. As you are talking, the student is going to see a captioning of whatever you say. In the very top box, what you see is my most recently spoken sentence. Down in the bottom, what you see is a running transcript of everything that's being said. I'm going to increase the font size a little bit. That'll make it easier for you to see what I'm saying. So again, as I'm talking, everything that I'm saying is being captioned. On your end, you actually see it a little bit slower than what's happening on my end. The reason for that is because of the webinar, everything that happens on my end happens about 1 second before you see it. So you're seeing about a second delay beyond what the student would actually see in the classroom. So again, everything that I'm saying is being captioned. Notice that we use context in order to determine the appropriate captioning. So for example, if I say something like, my telephone number is 507-645-8924. Notice that the formatting is what you would expect for a telephone number. Or I can say something like, please write your name right now. You can see how we use context in order to get the appropriate spelling of the word write. Again, write your name versus right now. Or something like, he went to see the sailors at sea. Or I need 10 cubic feet of dirt. Notice that we automatically provide the correct formatting for what the student expects. Again, this is all being done in real time. There is no script that I'm following. Everything that I'm saying is just ad lib, just like you would do in the classroom. I'm going to turn off the microphone for a minute and show you a couple features that are built in here. So I mentioned earlier that what we have is a synchronized voice recording that is part of the transcript. And I hope you can hear this. I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit on my speakers. And so if I highlight something like this, and then I click the play recording, you're going to be able to hear what I was saying at that moment. Let's give it a try.
So again, everything that I'm saying is being captured.
So I hope you could hear that. Again, something like this, my telephone number is?
My telephone number is 507-645-8924.
And again, notice that when I said that sentence, I didn't use the words 507-654-8924, which is what you would have to do in something like Dragon. Our software is smart enough to be able to automatically caption whatever you're saying. So what I have here now is a sample transcript, and I want to save that. So over on the far right, a little bit of an eye chart here, but over on the far right, you can see these three buttons. And I'm going to go ahead and save this particular transcript. And in this case, let's say I want to save it as a Word document. I'm going to save it right to my desktop, cluttered as it is, and I'm going to save that as, today's webinar. I have different options, and so I could save it as our proprietary format, which includes that synchronized voice recording. I could save it as a Google Doc if you want to share that on Google Docs or something along those lines. In this case, I'm going to save it as a Microsoft Word document, and I'll save it right to my desktop. And let's go ahead and open that up. So again, I have a fairly cluttered desktop, but we can find it. So I'll go to there. And date modified, today's webinar, there it is. And so when I launch that, up will come my Word document. And here it is. I'll make that a little bit bigger again so you can see it. So again, this is just a quick example where what I've done is saved a Microsoft Word document of the transcript of everything that was being said in the classroom. So your student doesn't have to wait for this to get sent back to them or something like that. They have it immediately. It's right there. They can take it home with them if you want them to. You can edit it. You can do whatever you want with that. And again, it's automatically generated. All you do is have to save that. So I'm going to step you through sort of the typical day of a student, and then we're going to get into some common setups that we have. So a student will walk into the classroom. Typically in the United States, most of our attendees here are from the U.S. Quite a bit different when we get to overseas, especially Middle East, India, Pakistan, and such. But in the U.S. and Canada predominantly, the student takes a laptop or tablet with them from class to class. The student's going to put that tablet at the desk, hand the wireless microphone to the teacher, and then sit down at the desk and is going to click on a user account. With the software, you can have as many user accounts as you want, and you will have one for each teacher or the basketball coach or media center worker or friends or parents, whatever it might be. You can have as many as you want. And in this case, what the student would do is select on that teacher's name, and everything gets automatically loaded. The student's then going to turn on the microphone, as I'll do right here. And with that, now everything gets captioned. So you as the teacher will just start speaking. As you say something, everything is captioned, and that will continue on until the end of the class period. Okay, so now I'm going to stop it there. Then the student's going to come over here, save the transcript as we just showed you earlier, save it to an appropriate folder. In this case, I'll just say math class, pretending it was that. and click Save. Clear out that that transcript, and then repeat the process throughout the day. So at the end of the day, what they're going to have in the class is live captioning that they can see immediately, and also, if you want, to send them home with the notes of what you said and potentially synchronized voice recording of everything that was said as well. So that was a very quick overview of everything that I was going to demonstrate. Very quickly, just mentioning the configure page. This is where you can very much optimize the system for a particular teacher, for a student. Visualize is just a very simple tool that we created where there's a saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. In this case, we bring up pictures, anything that you want. It could be a homework assignment, a map of the school, in this case a calendar, whatever you want, and we give you drawing tools that you can use in order to annotate various items on your pictures. So again, a very nice little tool, very easy to use, called Visualize. Then under the Help button, what we have here is our entire user guide and also a variety of video tutorials. So these are very short. Each one's about 5 minutes long, and it's going to take you from just getting started to some really advanced features like adding new vocabulary, or perhaps you have a student that has limited fine motor skills and they want to use their voice to control the interface. It's all part of the features that are built into Interact AS. Okay, so let me drop back out of this, and we're going to go back over to PowerPoint and jump down to where we left off, and we're going to talk about the typical deployments of how it's used within a classroom. Sorry about this. Scroll down a little more. Getting closer. I think I passed her on. There we go. So a typical classroom setup, again, in the United States and Canada, it's by far common for the student to have the laptop on their desk. In other countries, it's much more common to be displaying the captioning in the front of the classroom, but it's whatever you prefer. Either way, the software obviously supports that. Interact AS does run on a Windows operating system, so Vista or newer. We obviously like Windows 10 versus older operating systems, but any sort of Windows operating system from Vista or newer we do support. Interact AS is a serious number cruncher, and I want to emphasize this point. It does very much hammer a processor. The amount of statistics that we're doing in order to generate a contextual-based real-time captioning is actually pretty astounding. And so we do want a i5 or faster computer, and we'd like that to be a somewhat newer computer versus one that's 3-4 years old. So if you have an old computer laying around and nobody's really using and you want to blow the dust off it and try it for Interact AS, we really cringe at that. What we want is a decent computer. Budget-wise, if you're going to go out and buy a brand new Intel i5-based laptop or tablet, you're talking a minimum of $600, probably realistically about $800 in order to purchase that system. In addition to that, we want 4 gigabytes or more of RAM, which is going to be true for any computer you buy today, and you'll always have a USB port. In addition to that, we do offer our own wireless FM microphone system, and this is a system very much optimized for use in speech-to-text situations, so much higher fidelity than what you would have, for example, in a Phonak or Oticon system, much higher fidelity. We went to the musician realm. We're using the same wireless components that are used by musicians in order to get that very high fidelity audio samples being streamed. So our wireless microphone system is also much smaller than, for example, an Inspiro type system, a Phonak Inspiro. We want it to be pocketable. We didn't want the student to have to carry around, an extra bag of items or something like this. And so what you see down in the picture here, you can kind of compare it to the size of the headset, are the transmitter and receiver, and that's what the student is typically going to carry from class to class. So a little bit bigger than a pack of matches, but roughly about that size. Again, they can certainly fit within a pocket quite easily. The cost for our system is $349, so significantly less than what you would pay for a Phonak type system, but the quality in terms of speech-to-text capabilities is certainly going to be superior. It's also very common within a K-12 type setting to order a separate headset for each teacher. And so With your license, you get one headset. With the wireless system, you get a second headset. If you want to order 5 additional ones, that would give you a total of 7 headsets. We're now up to $196 for those additional headsets. That's going to be your complete cost. With that, you have a separate headset for up to 7 teachers, a wireless FM system, and a permanent unlimited use license of Interact AS. A lot of questions that we get with respect to using an existing wireless FM system, and we're very much supportive that if the student is already using a wireless FM system and that's successful, we do not want to take away that existing accommodation. We want to leverage that. We want to use it. So certainly you could connect an existing wireless FM system, in this case what I'm showing is a Phonak system, directly with a second receiver directly to the computer. That's not really recommended. Instead, what we do is when you purchase our software, we include a USB sound adapter. It's really hard to see, but there's a green port on here. And what you can do is use a streamer or other means to connect a hearing aid or CI to that, or you would simply have the teacher wear 2 microphones, the existing one and ours. Our microphone system is a very different frequency than Oticon or Phonak, and so there is no interference issues whatsoever. All right, so let me stop there and talk a bit about a couple new products coming out. The first one is Interact Streamer. What we have within Streamer is the ability to take the captioning that's being generated by Interact AS and stream that to a student's device, an iPad, Android, a Chromebook, anything like that. So if you're in a situation where you need to caption those morning announcements or all school assemblies, then we'd like to have you consider using Streamer in order to do that. So lots of nice features there. Again, Interact AS is still running on that Windows operating system, but we're taking the captioning and we can stream that out to a student's iPad or Chromebook, whatever they might be using. Also, another tool probably more driven by needs at the university setting than K-12, but if you are doing the approach of flipping the classroom, or you do just simply have videos that do not have captioning on them, what we're developing is a tool called Interact Video, and that's going to help caption what you're doing. The words there say automatically caption. We're not going to quite be able to automate it, but it becomes close. And so we certainly make it very easy for you to be able to generate a captioning of any videos that you produce and be able to then deploy or distribute that captioning throughout your classroom and school campus. So the last item we wanted to talk about, and then we'll jump into more questions, was how can you sign up for your 30-day trial? And with that, what I want to do is bring over the web page here for Success for Children with Hearing Loss. And so I hope you can see the website there. It's successforkidswithhearingloss.com. And this is the place where you want to go in order to be able to order Interact AS and find out a lot of information about Interact AS. And Karen, did you want to talk a little bit more about this?
Sure, I would. We have a number of pages on the website that describe lots of things about Interact AS. And one of the most helpful things that you might have already run across, as you can see at the top of this page, is the informational video by Mike Massini. Mike is our Interact AS customer support person who is really very helpful to school systems who are considering this for a specific student or who are going to go ahead and do the trial period and really do need support in getting it optimized. So the informational video is a good place to show parents and maybe show your administrator, so show somebody else, so that if they're not able to watch the recording that Rob is making of this webinar, at least they can see a little bit of information about it. And then like I said, there's quite a bit of information describing it. And then let's go to the Interact AS trial period, Rob, because I think that's where most people, it's under purchasing. There it is, right there. You see it says it's $99, and that's for $99 you get a chance to try the software for a month, 30 days. And for And when you do that, you are also renting one of the high-performance classroom microphones that Rob had talked about. And so your credit card or your purchase order would reflect $399. If at the end of the 30-day trial period using that software, you decide, you know, it's okay, but it's just, for whatever reason, it's not a good fit for the student. Maybe that student wasn't thrilled to try it in the first place. Maybe there's a lot of pushback from staff that just makes it too difficult. Whatever the reason. If you return the microphone on time, you get 100% of your $300 back. So it does really make it a low-cost option to give this a try. But one of the things I wanted to stress was that this is not a, gee, I'm going to buy it and try it right out of the box kind of a system. There's a lot of moving parts in terms of trying to make sure it fits and is successful with that child's learning style, with getting him comfortable with the computer, getting the system optimized for each and every teacher. All of that takes some time. And again, Mike Massini is very helpful in helping school systems step through that process. Most of the time when it's a non-successful trial period, it's due to two reasons. The first is that the student really wasn't very open in the first place, and the second was that the microphone and the whole system really wasn't truly optimized, and the school district didn't go through those steps. So just wanted to stress that part. I also wanted to say one of the things that is often asked is whether the speech-to-text software will pick up the class discussions, and the answer is no, it won't. No more than an FM transmitter microphone on the teacher's mouth would pick up that classroom discussion. Only what is coming out of that teacher's mouth from a close distance into that microphone is going to be transmitted. Even if a student comes up to the teacher and talks to them, that student's voice is not going to be transmitted. It's just what the teacher says. So there needs to be other accommodations, some real thought put into how that child is going to access class discussions. And we need to think about that for our students with hearing loss anyway. So the trial period, if you wanted to do this, you would, we prefer a credit card, but if you wanted to do it on a purchase order, you could. And you need to think about timing. So if you scroll down here on this page, Rob, I wanted to show you that some example timing has been given because you want to make here it is, our scenario. We want to make the most of our 30 days with the software. Now you get the rental of the microphone for 45 days, but that 45 days starts the day that you receive it in the mail or receive it from shipping. And you start the 30 days with the software the day that you install it in the computer. So often with our kids with hearing loss, there's the teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing involved, and maybe the speech-language pathologist, and we want to bring on the person in the building maybe that does a lot of the IT support, and sometimes it just takes some days to try and get all those people lined up. So hopefully this example scenario will help you kind of think through your process when you need to order and how you need to get people kind of lined up before you get going here. We only have 2 to 3 months left of the school year, which sounds like a lot, but in order to get a really good trial period, you need to have some planning ahead of time. Very often it's not unusual to spend a week or two in the optimizing process and training the student, getting him comfortable. It's not that it takes a great deal of training, but you need to build up some comfort, and that might take some one-on-one with that teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. And then pick out a teacher that the student has that really is that guy or gal that's kind of the go-getter. Sure, I love technology. Yeah, gosh, this sounds interesting. Sure, I'd love to give it a try. that's who you're going to want to start out with. And somebody that student has a good relationship, and let them try the speech-to-text system, just the two of them in the classroom. And once you see like that's been optimized and it's going pretty well, then spread it to another couple of teachers and beyond. That's a good way to think about doing this trial period. And pretty much in a 1 to 2 week period, you will see, or that student will have enough experience with the equipment, your teachers will have enough experience to make a good decision as to whether this is really a good beneficial accommodation that the student would like to continue to use, or gee, maybe not so great a fit. Another question we often have is, gosh, how much does this cost? So let's go to the purchasing page, just right. And one of the things that we encourage you to do is number 2 there. It's that request for quote. If you click, you don't need to do this, Rob, but if the participants were to click on that, there is just a 1-page sheet that you would fill out, and in doing so it really helps you think through how your student is as a learner and how your student or your school considers or is thinking about using this equipment. And then go ahead and send that form to Mike Massini, and he can connect with you and provide a quote and start that conversation via email to help support you through this decision-making process. And you're going to receive software, so we certainly must have an email address on the purchase order. There needs to be a contact person specified that might be a different contact person than would often be on your purchase orders or within the online ordering system. This can be ordered online in Supporting Success for Children with Hearing Loss, or it could be done via a purchase order. And again, we prefer online. So let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit and get at the prices here. We'd already talked about the $99 student trial program and how you would be charged an additional $300 deposit on renting that microphone system. And then if you were wondering, gosh, what's the cost for the whole thing? If you were to buy it, just buy it straight out, the speech-to-text software costs $775 from Supporting Success. And if after you try this and you're really interested in it and want to look at bulk pricing, you can see if you buy 4 licenses, you'd get 1 free. If you buy 8, you get 2 free. That's probably down the road for everybody here. Just wanted to mention it. If you go ahead and do the trial period and you go, okay, yeah, we can see we're 3 weeks through our trial period. It's clear we want to continue this. We're going to get our order in right away so that the student is not going to miss anything, because after the 30th day, that software stops working. You can see that the upgrade to the professional edition after the trial period is $725. So you would keep your microphone. You've already paid $350 for the microphone. You've paid $49 in effect for the trial period of the software, and then that $50 difference between $725 and $775. There's not really an advantage to buying the license outright without trying it first. We really do encourage trial periods and to make sure that you do go through that optimizing process so that student and you get a really good feel for the best that this software can do in your situation. I'm going to let you talk for a second a bit about the language module options, Rob, and give me a little bit of a break.
You bet. Yeah, let me jump in. A few questions coming across, so thanks for submitting those. Some questions with pricing before I get to languages. So definitely with pricing, you do get full credit for a trial. And so we encourage you to do a trial. We want to make sure it's a good fit for the student. And so it gets a little complicated, but if you do the math, at the end of the day, you do get full credit for the trial. And so starting with the trial, making sure it's a good fit, and then upgrading to a permanent license is by far the preferred path. That's by far what schools do when they're at least purchasing their first license. And follow on from that, then direct purchase totally makes sense. But yeah, we do encourage you to do a trial, and you do get full credit for that. And yes, there are quantity discounts if you end up looking at a purchase beyond 8 licenses, wanting to do a campus-wide deployment. Let us know, and certainly the price drops quite dramatically with the more licenses that are included. Language module options. And so if you're in a situation where you have students, and predominantly it ends up being parents and guardians, that speak a language other than English, would prefer to speak Russian, Vietnamese, Thai, Spanish, whatever it might be, we have solutions for you to help out with that situation. We want to keep the parent involved in the child's education, and if that parent can't communicate with you, the teacher, that makes it difficult, and so we want to remove that language barrier, and that's what these optional language modules are all about. And so for $99, you can add the language module for conversations, and that's going to support all these 40 different languages that we have. And then if you want another option, just an option here, for $99, we include our document translation module. So now when you send a homework assignment home, it's in English for the student. If that parent can't read English, they don't really know what the student is studying. So now you could send it home in Vietnamese or Thai or Russian or Slavic, whatever language that parent prefers to read in, you can send that home. Or it could be just a simple note. I think Chris needs glasses. I see him having trouble seeing the board. And so now you can send that home in the parent or guardian's preferred language versus trying to find an interpreter, getting the interpreter to translate it, and go through that process in order to get it in native language. Here, just click a button, and it's done. So again, that's all part of the language modules that we have built into the system. Some other questions coming across, mostly dealing with noise and noise canceling and things like that. Yes, with our microphone system, we do filter out background noise. And so you can use this in quite a noisy situation. Obviously, we set this up to, our systems up to initially be used in warfighting situations, so extreme noise. So we do actually a very good job at filtering out background noise. And as Dr. Anderson mentioned, as part of that, we do filter out what other students are saying in the classroom. So a little bit of a debate when we started developing Interact-AS, whether we should try and transcribe what other students are saying or whether we should filter them out. And we ended up making the decision to not caption what other students are saying. We just felt we would get into legal issues with parents having to sign waivers and such like that. And so we did go this route, and there's an equal argument as to the other side of the coin. But the reality is what we did is we do filter out what other students are saying. And so in that type of situation, if a student asks a question in the classroom, the teacher's going to need to repeat that in order for that to appear in the captioning. So again, that's part of how we designed the system to indeed be used. So I think that covers most of the questions here. Karen, did you have any others?
Nothing other than just to say that Mike Massini is going to be following up with everyone who is registered and or attended this webinar, and he'll be sending you a copy of the PowerPoint and a copy of the recording, or a link to the recording, and hopefully you downloaded the handouts that were at the beginning of the webinar. And then once you have Mike's email address, and you will see it throughout the website here too, you can start your questions. If we haven't answered everything and you can't find the answer on the website, certainly feel free to give Mike, drop Mike an email and get your questions answered. Rob can do this as well. So we certainly don't want to leave you with questions hanging here.
Yeah, and I should jump in for a quick second here. I should mention that there are several questions coming across that are quite specific. So I'm going to stick around after the close of the webinar. If you can stick around, I'll be typing answers to each of your individual questions. So please do stick around, and I'll make sure and get those answered. Sorry, Karen, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, not a problem. And I'm just going to wrap up and say, if you are an educator and would like to have a certificate of participation for attending this, you can email me. And my email is Karen at successforkidswithhearingloss.com, and I can send you a certificate of participation for that. So it's the same, it's Karen, and then it's the same string as you can see for Mike Massini. Mike Massini's email is interactassupport@successforkidswithhearingloss.com, and mine is Karen@successforkidswithhearingloss.com, and I will be happy to get your certificate out to you. Because we really do appreciate your time. We know it's valuable. You need to be out there with students, but we also need to plan and think about how we can meet each and every individual's specific needs. And hopefully you'll give Interact AS a try and see for yourself if it's a good fit in your situation. So thanks from me, and Rob said he's going to hang around and answer specific questions. And once again, thank you for your time, and happy spring, everybody. Bye-bye now.